Brother Aurelio no longer prayed with the others. He knelt alone, always near the well. His robes darkened with earth, his lips cracked, and his eyes never blinked when the wind shifted. He had become the abbey's miracle bearer, and the monks feared him in silence. No one dared ask how the well never dried, only that it continued, and it did, until the girl arrived. Her name was Camilla. 12, sickly, she was brought by a nobleman from Spalato, who had heard of the miracle well. Her mother had died in childbirth, her father had vanished in the plague, and now her body refused to grow. She coughed blood in every chapel she entered, except this one. Within days of drinking the well's water, her skin brightened, her hair thickened, and she smiled. For the first time, Aurelio watched her carefully. Her laughter stirred something deep in him, not desire, not paternal love, grief. He had never known softness outside ritual, never known joy not laced with pain, and now this girl was proof that something still bloomed where he had sown rot. For the first time, he hesitated to return to the well. That night, the water dropped. The next day, wilt set into the garden. By evening, one of the elder monks bled from the gums without cause. Aurelio rushed to the well, knelt, waited. It said nothing, until he whispered, "I have no more sins." And the well laughed. Then, take one. He saw her face, Camilla, her eyes, half lit by hope, and somewhere, in the black between stars, Aurelio understood the cost. That night, he crept into her chamber. The abbey slept, no moon, just the brittle hiss of wind through candle cracks. He placed his hand on her chest, felt the rhythm, the fragile drum of a heart that still trusted the world, and he whispered, "Forgive me," but he didn't kill her. He kissed her forehead and walked away. But the next morning Camilla was gone, vanished, no footprints, no scent, only her shoes, perfectly placed beside the well. Inside one, a single tooth. Aurelio fell to his knees, screamed. The other monks rushed to him, thinking him wounded. But when they saw the well rising boiling without flame, they called it holy, a sign. The abbey declared the event a miracle. They wrote that the girl had been taken into divine custody, a living saint. But Aurelio knew. He had thought of harming her, dreamed of it, measured her weight in his arms. That was enough. The well had fed on intention, not action. It needed only the seed, and it would grow the root itself. After Camilla's disappearance, the water flowed with unnatural strength. People brought offerings by the children were baptized in the stream. But the garden now bore fruit that rotted before the sun touched it. Birds died mid-flight. A monk began painting murals in his sleep, black figures pouring out of a throat, always weeping, always smiling. Aurelio tried to stop confessing. He stopped speaking. He sealed his lips with wax. But the dreams returned, and in each one, Camilla was at the bottom of the well, smiling, holding something. His face. They say the well at Sant'Eutizio never runs dry, not in drought, not in plague, not even during the siege of 1294, when everything else turned to dust and bone. The villagers called it God's throat, a mouth that swallowed sin and returned grace. But the monks who kept it knew a different name. They called it Confessio Profunda, the deep confession, and one monk among them believed the well did not cleanse, it consumed. His name was Brother Aurelio. Born of no family, raised within the abbey walls, never touching coin, woman, or wine. He was the perfect vessel for holiness, or so they thought. His voice was gentle, his hands always folded, and when he prayed, the candles around him seemed to burn slower, quieter, like listening. He was entrusted with the keys to the inner cloister by age 12, but his first encounter with the well changed everything. It was a winter night, windless and starless. He'd forgotten to lock the refectory and returned late. That's when he heard it, a sound rising from the old stone circle near the olive trees, not gurgling, not echo, whispering, as if something beneath the surface was remembering his name. He approached, slowly, and leaned over. There was no moon, yet he could see his reflection perfectly, except the mouth wasn't his. It was open, smiling, and then it whispered, "Tell me." He stumbled back, told no one. But the next day, during prayer, the abbey's main well had run dry. Only Confessio Profunda still offered water, cold, sweet, abundant. They said it was a miracle, but Brother Aurelio knew what it wanted. That night, he returned to the well. Kneeling, trembling, he confessed his sin, not his, a lie. "I stole bread from the sick." The well hissed, then shimmered. Water rose half a hand. He stared, confessed another. "I watched a brother bleed and turned away." The water rippled higher. The next morning, the monks praised him, called him blessed. He said nothing, but returned again and again, each time offering bigger sins. Sins he invented, sins he read from ancient court records, sins that had never touched his heart but pleased the throat below. And it drank. The water came cleaner, the air purer, flowers bloomed out of season. People came from distant cities to drink the miracle water. They donated gold. They kissed his hands. He became a saint in waiting, all for lies. But Aurelia began to notice something. The more he lied, the more real the sins became. A brother fell sick after he claimed to poison him. A scribe hanged himself after Aurelio confessed to seducing him. The sins he invented began to manifest, and each time the well's voice grew stronger, no longer whispering, laughing. "You're not lying," it said once. "You're creating." That night, Aurelio didn't sleep, and in the morning, the abbess of a nearby convent was found drowned. In her lungs, olive leaves, the same kind that surrounded the well. He tried to fill it with stones, with ash, with salt, but the well swallowed everything like a beast that never chewed, only waited. Brother Aurelio stood above it in silence, hands blistered from lifting broken masonry, lips sealed with blood wax and thread. Still, it sang to him, not in words now, in memories. Camilla's laughter echoed in the water's ripple. The sound of monks at prayer twisted into a chant that ended with his name, and worse, the well no longer waited for him to confess. Others began to hear it too. It started with the blind. A woman from Norcia came crawling through the snow, her eyes sewn shut by her own hand. She claimed the well had called her in a dream, that it would fill her with light she had never seen. When she arrived, she knelt and cried, not out of pain, out of gratitude. She said she could see the shape of her sins in the water's sound. Others followed. A man who hadn't spoken in 10 years began chanting when he touched the stone. A boy who had drowned and revived 3 days later came barefoot, whispering, "The well is not death, it's before birth." The monks tried to close the gates, but pilgrims broke through. They weren't seekers of miracles anymore. They were devotees. They didn't drink from the well. They sang to it, fed it. Whispers of stolen gold, dead lovers, children never born. They believed the water wasn't holy, it was hungry, and if you fed it, it would remember you. Aurelio tried to warn the abbot. He showed the tooth, the shoes, the nightmares, the faces painted in candle soot across the chapel. But the abbot only smiled. "Perhaps it is not sin," he said, "but truth." Aurelio realized then. The abbot had been confessing to, in secret, late at night, and the well had given him dreams where his wife long dead spoke to him again, with a voice young and kind. That evening, the refectory walls wept. Not water, milk, warm, clotted. The monks scraped it into bowls and drank in silence. No one blinked. Aurelio fled, into the forest, into the dark. He walked 3 days without food, without rest, until he reached the ruins of a Roman temple long buried in moss. He prayed to a nameless god, any god, something older than thirst, and the next morning he returned to Sant'Eutizio with fire. He carried pitch, he carried sulfur, he poured it all around the well. No one stopped him. They watched, silent, expectant. He struck the flint. Flame roared into the sky, and the well burned. Not the wood, not the pitch, the stone itself. It bled black smoke for 9 days, and then silence. For the first time in years, no sound, no whisper, just cold. For 9 days the well stayed silent, and for 9 days the world around it began to forget. First, the flowers wilted, then the pilgrims vanished. Not in death, in thought. Their names faded from ledgers, from memory. Even the monks, once so devout, looked around the abbey and blinked as if wakened from a fevered sleep. One whispered, "Where did the crowds go?" Another asked, "Why does the cloister smell of milk and ash?" But no one remembered the girl. Not Camilla, not her shoes, not the tooth. Only Aurelio, and he remembered everything. That was his curse. While others were freed from the grip of the well's hunger, he was tethered to it like a man who had once fed a beast, only to find its hunger embedded in his bones. He lived now in the old apothecary, alone, not as penance, as warning. The abbot no longer spoke to him. His brothers gave him wide berth. The garden remained dry, the fruit pale and bitter. And then, one night, a child knocked at his door. She was no older than 7, hair dark, eyes clouded. She said her name was Lucia. She asked if the well lady still sang. Aurelio stared. He asked, who told her about the well? She only shrugged and pointed to the sky. "She lives under the stars now," the girl said. "But she misses you." He let her stay that night. She didn't sleep, just sat, humming a song he hadn't heard since Camilla. The next morning, she was gone. But at the center of the cloister, the ground had split. Not deep, just wide enough to drink rain. The monks said nothing, but every night, someone new began humming. The old painter monk returned to his murals. This time, he painted Aurelio's face over, and over each version more decayed, more hollow, until only the eyes remained. The abbot declared Aurelio a source of corruption, that he had brought the darkness by defiling the sacred well, that his penance had become possession, and on the 13th night they dragged him from his cell, shackled him, took him to the broken stones where the well once gaped like a mouth, and they read the rites of excommunication. They tore the habit from his back, branded his hands, burned his name from the abbey records, and just before they cast him out, the abbot leaned in and whispered, "I still hear her voice." Every time I closed my eyes, Aurelio said nothing. They left him at the edge of the wood, bleeding, shivering, alone. But as he crawled into the dark, something shimmered in the air above him. Rain, cold, but not wet. Each drop landed with a hiss, and where they fell, flowers grew, tiny, white petalless, and each one faced downward, as if bowing. He looked back at the abbey. The wind carried a lullaby through the cloister arches, one he knew, one he feared, and beneath his chest something moved. Not a creature, not a voice, a hole. They say Aurelio wandered for 40 nights through the forests of Umbria, not to escape, but to remember. Each step brought him closer to something not buried in the earth but in himself. For when the well was silenced, it did not die. It was transplanted, its mouth no longer stone, its depth no longer measurable. It now lived in the only vessel it could trust, the one who had fed it without question. He began to change. His shadow moved slower than his body. Animals refused to cross his path, and when he passed still water, it rippled inward as if pulled, not pushed. He found shelter in a ruined chapel once burned by lightning. No walls, just altar stones and ivy. There, he dug a circle with his bare hands, sat in its center, and began to speak. Not prayer, not confession, something older. He did not know the words, only that they were already inside him. Every time he spoke, the air grew thicker, the sky bent, and roots burst upward, not downward. He had become a reversal. At dawn, a figure approached, a woman, cloaked in ash-colored robes. Her eyes were clouded, but not blind. She spoke in a voice that sounded like 3 overlapping tongues. "You fed it lies," she said, but truth grew. Aurelio wept, not out of sorrow but relief. He asked, "What was it? What did I make?" She placed a hand on his chest. Cold, gentle. "You didn't make it. You gave it space." That night, Aurelio dreamt of the abbey, empty, the monks gone, only the sound of weeping from beneath the floor. When he awoke, his breath steamed like fire, though the air was still, and in the circle he had dug, water pooled, black, silent, but not still. It pulsed like breath. Aurelio leaned in, saw nothing, heard nothing, and then a single phrase formed across the surface. "Return what was borrowed." He reached into his robe, pulled from it the first sin he had ever confessed, the lie about stolen bread. He said it aloud, and the water hissed. He named the next, then the next, each one like plucking a thorn from his spine. With each, the pool receded, until nothing remained but dirt and silence. Aurelio lay back, his chest hollow, literally, a smooth, echoing cavity where once there was warmth. He did not die. He simply stopped. The woman returned later, took his body, buried it beneath the chapel where the well once stood, and placed no stone, only a mirror, face down. Years passed. The abbey was abandoned. Nature claimed the cloisters. Travelers spoke of a man in the woods who walked with no footsteps, of flowers that grew downward, of a song only liars could hear. And once a year, on the night before Lent, the soil above the chapel softens. If you kneel and whisper a sin you've never committed, the ground will breathe back. Do not worry, we will make it true. They say the well is gone, but the world is full of mouths, and some of them only need silence to speak.